Photography is all about light and the absence of light. Both are true. So learn how that works. Learn about composition. Learn how to cleanly get, I don't know if you've noticed, I shoot everything full frame and I print it that way. What you see is what you get. What I see is what I want. And that's how I print it out. That's what it's about. So then I explained to her, you know, my printer, he's so brilliant. Robert Cavalli is my printer who does my black and white work. He's beyond crazy good. But he went in, I told him a little sepia toning on this, okay? And he does it with variations. I explain it to the bride and groom. Yeah, it's something called variation. There's like 3 prints that he gives me. And he starts with where I asked him to go first, the light sepia toning. And then he shows me the 3rd or 4th one that he said, and then I decided this. He said, Joe, you know, this glass here had reflections from across the street. There were some cars. The church across the street was kind of in here too. And it was a little distracting. This was really bright up in here. So I decided on my own to burn it in, vignette it a little bit so that it's all about the bride and that your eye goes right to her and nowhere else. And I went, oh my God, are you kidding me? That's beautiful. So I entered this in competition and took 1st place and the grand award in an international competition, WPPI, which is a wedding and portrait thing. But it took 1st place there because it was done in hand. Now, the bride saw this and said, I want one like that. And I looked at her and I looked at the print and I said, I can come close. I can give you the exact one. Here's what's beautiful about film. And this is part of my pitch too. When I talk about my work, I shoot both film and digital still, right? So I separate, I show usually the digital stuff first, and then I go, and this is film stuff, this film-based stuff. And what's brilliant about film, and I go into the explanation of, this is a one of, okay? Because Robert isn't going to remember to the second how long he held it, the dodging and burning. He's just not going to, he's not going to be, it's done by hand, underneath the enlarger. The temperature of the developer could be off a degree or 2 different, so it changes the color a little bit. So we can't say I can give you an exact duplicate. Like with digital, we can continue to push the buttons. So what I'm doing as well, when I explain, I'm educating them. So when I give this print, it's thank you. It was an honor, and it was clear blessing for me to be invited, literally. I'm invited into the most day of your lives. Thank you so much for that. I had such a good time. So this is when she's now picking up the stuff. Right? So not obviously at the pitch, but afterwards. I've already been there. But I let her thank you, here's thank you, and then I explain, educate. So when you go online on Pictage, you're going to see the edited proofs that have been color corrected in folders, right? Separated out reception, ready, ceremony, and all that. And then you're going to see a folder that says Joe's favorites. Because I'll pull out 30 images or so and clean them up a little more to make wow images like this, okay? So that she can compare. So the hard copy and the 30 in that folder gives you an idea of where we will go with it when it's time for the book. And notice, I haven't used the word album. It's a book. It adds a little more, you think album, you think soccer moms, you know, with their little snapshots. That's an album. Book, that's a little more high-end, isn't it? If you think about it. Intellectually, it just feels like it's a little better way to describe it. This is a book of your wedding.
The paper that you're using feels very high-end, too. It's unique.
Yes.
It's not the same.
Yeah, I like the fine art paper. This is all Canon stuff, so, but I like their fine art paper. It's absolutely stunning. So as you can see, both cross-platform between black and whites that was actually scanned from a negative, and actually what I do now, just for you guys, I found this to be better. When Robert prints, I'd rather scan the print and do a high-res scan of the print because it keeps the integrity of how he printed it versus scanning a little tiny 35mm negative and then printing it. It's harder to control. It's uglier. I have a larger space to work with and scan that, and it keeps the way Robert initially printed it. It's a little more costly, but again, I'm targeting an audience, a bride, a groom, that can afford it. And having said that, you don't have to do a whole ton of these this way. And guess what I do now as well? I will take a digital file that I shot that the bride absolutely loves and now says to me, you shot that on film. Done. I take that file, I make a negative. I take that negative, I give it to Robert, print it. This we can do today. For $15, you can make a negative from any digital file through several companies in the US, and that negative can be printed the old-fashioned way, and you can come up with images like this. So if there is one that happened to have been shot digital, because I mix myself up with film and digital, and the bride really loves it, we do it, no problem. So it's also another way where I say to the bride sometimes, because it's sometimes cost prohibitive, that I shoot all film, because I charge extra for the film stuff now, because it's costly. Film costs more, there's less of it around, processing costs more, all of that. And I got to make proofs, because unless I scan it. So what I tell them is this: look, I can shoot the whole thing digital, and anything that you see that you wished were in film, for $15 a scan, we can make, or $15 a neg, we can make negative. If you have 10 or more, that price drops down to $8 a piece. Because we ganging up, what they do is they take an 8x10 film sheet and they put a whole bunch of the files on there, like 35 millimeter, and you can have 30 or 35 on one sheet, and they charge me one price for it. Ends up being $8, $6 a negative. So, wow, why not? So if you really are jonesing for my film look and how film is shot, there's a way to do it, even just shooting digital. There's a way to do it. So I tell this to the bride when she picks this up, because I'm educating her. So now she goes home with this thing. What happens now? Look what he did for me. Look at this image. Shows it to mom, dad. More important, shows it to her best friend, who was the maid of honor or bridesmaids, who is going to get married. Right. Look what my photographer did. Will she remember that? How am I setting myself apart? That's another way. Okay? That's another way. Figure out how to separate yourself. How are you different? Find out how the other people are pitching in your area. What are they doing? How do you make yourself unique? Figure that out. And I'm telling you, there's a way to do it. And one of them, right here, right now, in the pitch, is who you are. Because there isn't another Joe. There isn't another you. You're it. So if you can find that and sell that, there's your experience. We good? Ooh, we're almost time for a break. Are there any questions?
There are always questions.
We love questions.
Does anyone in the audience have a question?
Oh, he's got one over here.
So, where do we sign the contract, and when can we book you for?
So, and there it is, right? So let's talk about that for a second. A lot of times, because I don't try and push them into buy it now, I actually ask them, have you seen anybody else? Are you looking for anybody else? Are you looking around? Of course they are. Sometimes they are. Oh, no, stop. Usually they are, right? They're comparing shopping. And do. Because I want you to be able to compare and contrast. You know, I want you to really want me, okay? And you'll know. And so you know what happens a lot of times? They get down outside to where their car's parked at the meter, and all of a sudden, 5 minutes later, I hear a knock on the door, credit card's out. Nah, we got as far as the car, and we need to have you. That's my client. My client is also the one that gets it right away, and at that point, they've seen a couple already. They're not interested in seeing any more. That's my client. And we're connected. Like I said, usually there's a tear rolling down her face when some of these images pop up. It's beautiful because she sees herself in here. So I've sold it. At that point, 50% deposit holds the date. I'm on a first come, first served basis. I pencil nothing in. So if you have to think about it, I want you to think about it. But beware that if someone else is in the wings that wants the same date, whoever comes up with the 50% deposit is the one that gets the date. And then once I get that booking, I don't book anybody else. Even if Brad Pitt shows up, I'm booked because everybody's important to me. We're all equal, okay? Celebrity or non-celebrity alike, we're all equal. So then they'll say to me, but okay, so if we're seeing 2 more photographers, what happens in 3 days that we come back to you and you've booked someone else? No. Okay, what I will do for you is this. Right now, the date is open. It's yours. What's going to happen if someone else comes in, wants that date before you get back to me, I will give you first right of refusal. I will call them up and say, okay, you now have an option. There's another one hanging, wanting that booking right now. What would you like to do? Want to release it? Again, I'm back to first come, first served, but I'm honoring the fact that you saw me first. You saw me first for that date. That's it. Yeah? So that's important. Go ahead.
Okay, Joe, there are several people that have this question, so I'll just pick one person. Ecolanice asked, do you think it's possible to sell an experience if you don't have a studio? Ideas, and that is thanks from Eric from New Jersey. And a lot of people are asking, what do you do if you don't have a studio?
Yeah. Oh, no, no, no. You don't understand. When I first started, I started pitching at Dunkin' Donuts. They didn't have Starbucks 17 years ago. It was Dunkin' Donuts. Yes, because remember, and I would bring a little music in a Dunkin' Donuts, of all things. Oh my gosh, I don't even know how I did that. It was ridiculous. What was selling it was the little bit of music, the smell of donuts and coffee. You know what I'm saying? It could be anywhere. What's really cool is that I offered to go to their homes, and when I attacked the whole celebrity segment, where did I have to go? Did they come to, did J-Lo come to see me? No, I went to her. I went to her. So I was already out of my home, out of my studio, going to theirs. I would have my little drag-along books. I had the graphic books back then as well. And then I had my other stuff, the prints, a box of prints, all matted prints. And I drug it along, and I pitched in the kitchen. I find an open window facing me so that, what? The light hits it, hits me. They sat across from me, across the kitchen table. Sometimes they were cooking. What were they smelling? Their favorite food. So, yeah, it doesn't matter where you are. It really doesn't matter where you are. Anywhere. Because what you're selling is the experience is you. You're it. And you can take you anywhere and do it. Absolutely.
Great. Another question from the internet. Our Che Guy and others are also wondering this. How do you deal with questions about pricing via email or also over the phone? Do you suggest they come in to talk?
Yeah.
And how do you get them there?
Yeah, so we kind of a little bit covered that before. So what I do is this, is that when I get the phone call or the email about the inquiry, I let them know, look, you really need to sit in front of me. You want to see this stuff firsthand. The prints don't look the same on my website than if you were to hold it in your hand and actually look at it. Okay, so I convince them to come in. Sometimes it's difficult because they're in New York, but eventually they get the idea. So in terms of pricing, you sometimes have to, you know, not be able to get around that. You have to let them know how much you are, right? So rather than scaring them away, and we're going to talk about package prices, because when you see my package price list, I start with the big kahuna on top. I think I have my first package price list as $42,995. And people freak out when they see that. It's like sticker shock, right? However, the next one down is 20-something. And they go, oh, God, yeah. Thank God there's a 20-something there. Right. What am I selling? I'm not selling the top one. I'm letting them know that's the big one, but I want you here. Because if you do it the other way around, you start at $7,500, work your way up. They rarely get off to $7,500 to work all the way up to the top where it's 15. No. I want this one. It's psychology. So Dennis Reggie, dear friend, said this to me. Why in a movie theater do you see behind the snack bar counter a little tiny, little small, right? It starts out with small popcorn. Then you have a medium popcorn. Then you have the large popcorn. And then you have this humongous tubbo at the end, right? Huge thing. Not only that, there's a little sign on that tub that says, if you can eat all of this, we'll refill it for you for free. Are they selling that tub? No. They don't want you to buy the small one, because when the guy is in there with his date, he's going to be embarrassed if he buys that 75-cent one compared to that huge tub. So they want you to move up to the medium or large. They don't want you to buy the tub. They don't care less about the tub. They want you to buy the middle one, not the small one. Same thing with me and the way I work my prices, okay? Start with the large, work your way down to the small. I want you to get the next one down or the third one down and be happy. If I did it the other way around, which has been my experience, they get hung up on that first one. Good, we'll come in at the beginning one. And we'll talk about the prices afterwards for moving myself up. They rarely do. Okay, so do it the other way around. But yeah, it's how I do it.
All right, we'll ask one more question before we go to break.
Yep.
Kanga Mingo would like to know if you talked about Lightroom, not using Photoshop.
Yeah.
If you do all your own editing, do you outsource any editing?
Very good question. Here's what I do. My wife edits everything. I want a woman to look at my work. There used to be, I would come in, I have my babies, right? These are my kids, man. I'm connected, attached to them. However, in some ways, it's kind of a masculine thing, right? But who am I appealing to? The bride. I want a woman's set of eyes, and my wife is brilliant. She wants to see this. And there's times where she edits out one image that I look at, and I go, oh, why'd you edit that? She goes, it's crap. Oh. Heartbroken. Heartbroken. It's one of my babies, so I wait till she goes to sleep. I put it back in. But I like a woman to edit it. So here's what I shoot 2,000 images. My second might shoot 2,000 images. Together we have 4,000 images. We edit down. My wife doesn't want to see more than 100 images per hour shot. So if I do 7-8 hour gig, that's 800 images. That's all she wants. We have 4,000. So she edits out 3,000 or more images. She wants just the best ones. Initially, I had clients that wanted all the stuff to look at, all the eye candy. Guess what happens? They get confused. Oh my God, overwhelmed, we'll never be able to pick, and they never picked stuff. They couldn't pick the images. Okay? They had a hard time picking and editing out themselves. So then I decided, you know what, I got to cut this thing out and give the 700-800 best ones possible. And that's what we give them now, and then 30 of those enhanced. I want you to think about a graphy book for me, max 150, 170, max images. So imagine having 700-800 amazing, beautiful shots and still having to edit down to 150. Oh my God. So they're stressed out enough, which is a good stress to have. If you have 800 drop-dead gorgeous photos, yay. So yes, Lightroom, my wife edits, and then we tweak them all. My guy, who is my primary shooter, he comes in and he, in batches, will clean them up and do the initial, and then I will go in afterwards, approve, and pick 30 of my favorite ones that he goes back into Lightroom and now tweaks. And we're talking a little softening, a little vignetting. We like the slight vignetting. I don't want it like a blowtorch, you know, like someone blowtorched the edges off. But a slight vignetting, it just kind of helps your eye focus in. I look for things that are extraneous, like sometimes there's an exit sign. Okay, we remove sometimes the exit sign for the cleaned up shots, right? Because I want them to see that this is what's going to end up in your book. Your book is not just made up of the images that are the 700 or 800 cleaned up ones, but now there's a little more wow to them. There's a little more sparkle to them. Not overly, like if I see one more photoshopped image of where the grass is like so green that it comes from another planet. I've never seen some of these greens or blues or purples in the skies ever. But I think that's too much, you know. We have at some point crossed over from photographic to graphic. And we're losing sight of the fact that this is photographic. And so I don't mind it, but call it what it is. So if you go so far now to kind of mask, and I'm gonna say this as politely as I can, if it's crap going in, it's going to be crap coming out. I don't care how you mask it. It's still going to look yucky, okay? So the thing to do is to get really proficient at in-camera capture and then enhancing it. Absolutely enhance. I'm all about enhancing it. But take it to a reasonable level of enhancement. Don't go over the top and now spin these weird-ass things on it to where it's no longer a photograph. That's what I suggest. Yeah. Opinions. Everybody has one. Okay. So now we're breaking?
That's wonderful. Before we take a break, I wanted to share with you some information from the internet, what people are saying.
Yeah.
Denise Finch says, I got tears in my eyes looking at your pictures during the pitch. Wow.
You're my bride, Denise.
And guess 3, 10, 18. The concept of selling an experience was a real light bulb moment. Thank you.
You're welcome. And again, I go back to what makes you different, right? What makes me different? How do I reinvent myself? And we'll eventually get to discuss, you know, the economy and all that it's done to all of us, all across the world. This is, bar none, has not hit, it's hit everybody, so no one's unfazed by it. And how do you, you know, figure a way around that? And there's a way to do it. There's many ways to do it, but I'll share you mine. Yeah.
Can't believe this is just the beginning. There's so much more. I'm very excited for this whole weekend.
I'm really excited. I'm glad everybody's tuned in on this. This is awesome to reach that many people. You know, I normally have 10, 15 in my classes, and that's it. But I love being able to speak to thousands at a time, which is kind of cool. It's kind of cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a 15-minute break, and during this time is a really lovely time to go see what workshops we have coming up here on Creative Live. Next week, we're going to have Lee Varas. He'll be teaching a course on skin, how to light it, how to shoot it, how to retouch it, how